Welcome again to another episode of Indie Reads TV, presented by Pages Promotions. I am Diana Catherine Plopa, and I'd like to welcome you again. We have in the studio with us a wonderful writer, Joan H. Young, and she's going to be talking about her very extensive writing career and some of the extracurricular fun things that she does, the quests she goes on, and the wonderful stories she brings us. So, Joan, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know you're coming from the west side of the state, and I really appreciate you making the trek out here.
Well, I think it's worth it, and I'll be in town for your big book event on Saturday, so I'm over here for the week.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Give us a little bit about your background. When did you start writing? What got you involved in writing? And why did you choose cozy mystery as your genre?
Okay, well, apparently my genetics got me involved in writing. I don't know. I've been writing. I wrote my first book when I was 7 called The Adventures of Skippy the Field Mouse.
Okay.
I still have it, but it doesn't have a lot of depth.
Wow, you were 7.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of frustrating years sending query letters to magazines trying to get various stories and essays and poems published, and with no success. So in 1992, I started hiking the North Country Trail, which is it's the longest national scenic trail, and began writing about my adventures on that trail and showed it to some friends.
There's a segue for the book. So North Country Cache, is that the book that came out of this hiking extravaganza?
Yes. I started writing stories about our adventures for the friends who went with me and showed it to a few other people, one of whom was a former editor for the Grand Rapids Press, and he said, "Oh, this has to be a book." And I went, "Okay." So it did become a book, and this is it, North Country Cache. That came out in 2005, but I had not yet completed the whole trail. So I'm working on the sequel.
Okay, great.
Which is North Country Quest. But we still haven't gotten to your question of why do I write cozy
mysteries. That's right. This is an organic show. It just happens as it happens.
Okay. So I decided that I wanted to write more, and I wanted to actually get things published. I self-published North Country Cache and discovered that I actually liked that process. A lot of authors don't, but I did. So between the time that came out and the time I started thinking seriously about that, self-publishing did a complete turnover in the way it works.
Yeah, just in the amount of time I went from my mid-20s to now, it's a completely different industry.
It is. So it became more doable and more accepted and easier.
More affordable as well.
And affordable. Yeah. It actually is very affordable. So I started thinking about what kinds of books I could write. I read a lot of different kinds of books, but just because you enjoy reading something doesn't necessarily mean that you can write it well.
True enough. Yeah.
So probably the genre that I've read most of in my life is mysteries of all kinds. But what kind could I write and sustain a set of characters through multiple books? And what it came down to is I know small towns and rural life. That's how I've spent my whole life, and that fits perfectly in with the cozy genre.
Absolutely it does.
I like to read thrillers, but I didn't necessarily want to write a lot of the real hardcore blood and gore and explicit scenes and things like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to write cozy mysteries. And on a long car trip, I dreamed up my characters and the first story.
Yep, that's the wrong one.
And here we are.
And I'm having technical issues. There we go. So this is the Dead Mule Swamp series.
Right.
I have to ask, I know everybody wants to know, Dead Mule Swamp. Where did you find? Is that a real place?
Well,
or is that an imagined place?
There is a real place very near me that is Dead Horse Marsh.
Okay.
So I had to steal the name and massage it a little bit, and it became Dead Mule Swamp.
Okay. Introduce us to Anastasia. Who is she, and how did you choose her as your main character?
Okay. Anastasia Raven is a 40-something divorced woman who has moved to the Northwoods from the suburbs of Chicago. She knows nothing about living in the country or small towns or how they work or anything, so she has to learn how the world is ordered in small towns.
Okay.
In the very first book is news from Dead Mule Swamp, and she comes up to the nearby small town is Cherry Hill. Dead Mule Swamp is the floodplain of the river that she lives nearby.
Okay.
She's bought this old fixer-upper house, and she is taking out her rage on the interior of that house, smashing
sledgehammer
the
in
walls
hand,
out.
right?
Yes. And while she's doing that, an old newspaper falls out of the wall as she's taking off the old lath and plaster. And she sets it aside because it looks really interesting, but she wants to look at it later. Mm-hmm. And while she's still working, a neighbor of hers, one of her new neighbors, stops in and wants to know if he can do a little work for her. He's down on his luck.
Okay.
But she really wants to do this job alone, so she puts him off very politely and goes to get some iced tea for them to share. And after he leaves, the newspaper is missing. So what is there about a 100-year-old newspaper that's so important that would make someone want to steal it?
And so the mystery begins.
Yes.
Wow. Now there's this has always fascinated me because, as you know, I'm trying to write in multiple genres.
I know. I'm so impressed with that.
Yeah, I'm starting to rethink.
Well, you've only got, 147 to go.
Only. So how did you come up with, I've asked other authors this as well, and it fascinates me because I have so many stories in my head all the time.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
I am constantly moving from one story to another story. I see story wherever I go.
Okay.
So how is it that you're able to keep the stories that you see, as I imagine you would see story everywhere as I do, how do you keep those in a single genre, let alone in a single set of characters and locales? I find that remarkable that you can kind of compartmentalize it all that way.
Well, there are stories floating in my head and in my little stack of scraps of paper that I've written ideas on and thrown them in a drawer and whatever that don't work for that genre.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I have the beginnings of a techno thriller and I have the beginnings of a fantasy.
Okay.
But they are not on my priority list. I'm trying to focus. So some of the storylines I have had to really work hard at. Some of them I've had a kernel of an idea, but then you have to add to it to make enough to fill a whole book. Mm-hmm. That's actually a skill I learned. The first two stories, the first book there down in the lower left, News from Dead Mule Swamp, and The Hollow Tree at Dead Mule Swamp. News is more like a novella, and Hollow Tree is definitely a short story.
Okay.
So I was still sort of getting my writer's legs about how to put together a complex story. Mm-hmm. And The Hollow Tree wasn't even an attempt to be complex. It is a short story. But what happened then is I put those two in the first print book together, and it turns out to be a really good way to introduce readers to the people who are the main characters that remain through the entire series. Okay. and get the setting all laid out for them and stuff.
So you don't have a challenge in writing another Dead Mule Swamp story? I mean, I know you just came out with this one, Dead Mule Swamp Mistletoe.
Mm-hmm. Yep, at Christmas.
It wasn't a challenge for you to try to find another story to fit Anastasia and the Dead Mule Swamp environment, and that wasn't a challenge? Did you have to work at that, or did it just come pretty easily?
All the ones so far have come pretty easily. The next one in the series is going to be Dead Mule Swamp Singer.
Okay.
And I only have just a little tiny bit of that yet, but I haven't even allowed my brain to think about it yet because I have to focus on the current project.
Sure.
But
but this
no,
one,
once I get a story,
it wasn't a challenge for you to come into this, and
I pretty much wrote the whole thing in the car on the way home from a trip to Alabama.
That's astounding. Congratulations.
Not all of the words, but all of the...
But it all came together.
It did. All of the
tell us about
complex
this.
relationships.
Without giving away too much, tell us about this.
Okay. Well, actually, I have to give credit where credit is due. The inspiration for this story came from a Nayu Marsh book, Tied Up in Tinsel, which is, like so many books of that era, a classic holiday party or some other kind of party or whatever, where the people all get stranded somehow and then there's a murder. Okay. So that one, as you can imagine from the title, Tied Up in Tinsel, is a Christmas story. Mm-hmm. And I had read that. I really admire Marsh. Her talent was putting a large group of people in a room and having all of these threads of conversation and antagonism and trivia going on at the same time, keeping all the people straight so that you're never really too confused about who's talking and who's making what point and all of that, and somehow in there hiding the bits of information that can lead you to who done it. So then I stumbled onto a book called The English Country House Murder. That is it's sort of a compilation of excerpts from books in that genre, specifically Brit mysteries with a big old house that plays a major part in the setting and usually a closed suspect pool. And at the end, the author threw down, well, he wasn't thinking of it as a challenge, but to me it was a challenge because he said Americans cannot write this successfully.
Okay, so challenge accepted.
Right.
Now it's time that you have to prove this guy wrong.
So he laid out 13 points that he said have to be in these books, and well,
there's your outline.
Exactly. So the only one I missed is that it's not set in Great Britain, and oh shoot, I can't remember the name. He said there's never a character named Lefty or something like that, and I didn't. If I reread that list immediately before writing the book, I would have made a character with that name. But people will have to read it and decide if they think I've succeeded. Sure. But
now, as I understand, it's out on ebook right now.
It's both paper and ebook. Yep.
Okay, there it is. So it's out on paper and ebook right now.
All of the books are, except North Country Cash is not an ebook, but everything else is.
Okay.
Both.
So North Country Cash, let me see if I can find it. There it is.
There we go.
North Country Cash, this is real life.
Yes, this one's nonfiction.
And how many years of travel does this book span for you?
Okay. I spent 20 years hiking the trail because I did it in sections. Mm-hmm. I'm the first woman to hike the entire trail.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's still...
Please tell me they give you a plaque to put on your wall.
I got a patch. Okay.
Yeah. That comes close.
That's even better. I do things for patches.
Okay.
So this volume takes us from 1993, when I started the trail. 1992 was when I took my very first little baby step hike on the trail.
Okay.
Through 2003, and it's about half of the mileage. as I was writing, I realized nobody was going to buy a 400-page or an 800-page book about hiking a trail.
Oh, rats.
So I split it into two.
Okay.
Also, the association was coming up on its 25th anniversary, and they wanted me to get it done for that, which I did pull off. My husband calls it the year of the book.
Yeah.
But we did get it done on time. And so now I'm doing the sequel, which is the other half of the story.
So this book, I love this book. It's so full of not just anecdotal information, but real live information about what the trail is like and just being out in nature in Michigan. And I mean, I think being in nature in Michigan is a unique experience to everything else. I don't know that you can say, oh, it's just like hiking in the Rockies, or it's just.
Oh, no.
I think Michigan has a very unique ecosystem, and it's very, very different from nearly any place else in the country you're going to go. So that's why I loved that book.
Okay.
It just,
and of course, the trail goes from New York to North Dakota.
yeah.
So there's, and the way I hiked
The
the
part
trail,
of Michigan that really grabbed me. It's like,
Okay.
this is so cool. This is maybe it was so personal to me because it's my home.
Sure.
And I said, I remember going here when I was a child. I remember we took a vacation, and I remember it looked like this, or at least in my imagination, those are the things I want to remember. So,
Well, that's fine. And if
for me, the book was about nostalgia.
To call some of that up for you, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, it was very much a nostalgic trip for me.
Okay. And that book did win an award from independent publishers.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It should.
So
It should. So the next book, North Country Cat, Quest.
Yep.
Quest is the other half of the trip,
Exactly.
and that goes through place to place. What's the starting place for that and the ending place?
Well, it turned out to make a good book because I did not hike it sequentially.
Okay.
I hiked a little bit here and a little bit there, and then we went another place. The association has a conference every year that moves from state to state, and the lady that hiked a lot of the trail with me, and I figured out early on that it made a lot of sense to take our big hike of the summer in the same state as the conference so that we didn't have two huge travel
that does
expenses.
make sense.
Yeah,
that does make sense.
Which made the trail, I thought it would make the trail feel fractured, but it really didn't. I kept track of everything in a spreadsheet, and it really made a much better book because it's a sampler of the whole trail. There are pieces from every single state in the book, and there will be in the second one as well.
Is this an excursion? I'm having technical issues again. Is this an excursion that you would recommend? Is this something
Absolutely.
that, well, I mean, I know for you, you know, it's like me. I'm like, yes, you have to do theater once in your life. Everybody should be on the stage at least once. Because for me, theater is a very personal thing. And I know that this is a personal thing for you. Every time I see something about you on social media, you're out in nature.
I'm trying.
It's wonderful. But is this something that you would recommend for everyone? Or do you feel that you have to have a certain mindset to be out in nature? You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, outhouse life. Is this a certain mindset you think you have to have? And how does that same mindset equate to you as a writer? How do you connect the two?
Well, you might have to have a certain mindset to hike the entire North Country Trail because it's so long, and it's that presents challenges that are different even from the trails everybody knows, the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest. But no, you have stumbled right into my biggest mantra, which is get off the couch. I write a column for my local newspaper, the Leadington Daily News, called Get Off the Couch. And the whole point is, if you want to go out and backpack for 2 weeks, do it. If you want to go out and smell the flowers and walk around your block, do it. If you want to get in a kayak and learn how to paddle, do it. If you want to, I don't know, somebody just took a stand-up paddleboard all the way across Lake Erie.
Okay, that's nutty.
Which is way beyond anything I'm going to try. But,
Right.
but there's something outdoors that you can do, that anybody can do. And so all you need is the mindset that says, I want to go outside.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just came back from, as we were talking earlier, I just came back from a long 4 or 5 day trip out into the middle of nowhere. I find it to be wonderful for refreshing, restarting my creative brain. Do you find that when you come back from hiking that you can do your writing work differently or better, or do you find that there's a connection? I find that I write much better in the middle of nowhere than I do anywhere else.
No, I don't think it works quite the same for me. When I am outside, I'm usually fully engaged with being outside, and I'm particularly nuts about botany.
Okay.
So I'm usually taking pictures of plants and thinking about plants.
But do you find that when you come back from a trip like that, do you find that there's a I guess my question is, do you find that it's a recharge, a battery recharge when you go out in nature and then you come back to write? Or do you find it that your writing is a secondary distraction for those times when you can't get out and write? I guess what I'm asking is, would you rather be doing one or the other?
Oh, I'd rather be outside. Absolutely. I mean, I would just take off and go. I would hike the North Country Trail again if I could.
And never write another book.
Yeah, probably. If I could afford it. Yeah, if I could afford any one thing for the rest of my life, I would go hike the North Country Trail again.
Okay. That's fair enough.
But I have to earn some money.
Sure. Don't we all? So these are, I'm trying to find them. Here they are. Your children's books. We've just got about 5 minutes left, and I don't want to leave out the children's books because these are spectacular. Can you tell me about this series? Give me a general idea of the story and what age group you wrote these for.
Yes, okay. They are aimed at about 8 to 11-year-olds. I've had kids as young as first graders pick them up and read them if they're pretty good readers and they like them. They spun off from the Dead Mule Swamp series.
Okay, so they're connected.
They are. There is an older lady named Cora who is one of Anna's best friends, and Cora is the little girl.
Okay.
Shown on the cover of 3 of those, who is telling the stories from her childhood. So these are set in the 1950s. They are all in the same, it's fictional, but they're all in the same county as the Dead Mule Swamp books.
Okay.
Which has brought up some possible plot ideas, too, of things, that...
So would you go as far as calling these prequels?
No.
Okay.
So far, the only character that has carried over is Cora, but I'm thinking about doing that, bringing another character from these books into the current Dead Mule Swamp books.
Okay.
But so far, Cora is the only one, and so they're set in the 1950s. I made it a goal to try to make them appeal to both girls and boys.
Mm-hmm.
So far, that seems to be working. They are similar in tone to the Boxcar Children books. If you're familiar with those.
Yes, I am.
So in a fast world, that's what they're about.
What fun!
And they're chapter books. They're not picture books. There's a few internal illustrations, but chapter books for youngish readers.
Do you see any more of those on the horizon?
Oh yes.
You say that like maybe 15 or 20.
Maybe.
Yeah.
In book time, they progress 1 book a month.
Okay.
So the first book happens just after the kids get out of, most of them are in 3rd grade, so they just got out of 3rd grade for the summer. So the books are June, July, August, and September.
Okay.
I'm working on, not seriously because I have to finish North Country Quest, but
Sure.
I'm working on the October book, and they can pretty much go on until the kids are about 15, if I live that long and the series lives that long. At which point we have a little problem with the backstory that was already written into the Dead Mill Swamp books. But
yeah, and we have your website crawling at the bottom of the screen so that people can come and take a look at your books and learn more about them. Also, you write a fabulous blog that I think people should know about as well. I love reading your articles. They're just so entertaining and really informative as well. So I want to make sure that people know that they can find you at booksleavingfootprints.com.
yes.
Excellent.
And the blog is very casual. It's just me talking. I don't even try to be
but
literary.
It's nice. I mean, I think that's why it's nice.
Okay, thanks.
That's why it's fantastic, I think. So I guess the last question would be, if you can't walk and you can't write, what would you do?
Me, personally?
Yeah.
Oh, model railroading.
Really?
Yeah.
You have a secret model railroading talent?
It's not too secret, but it's all packed away right now. But yes, if I get to the point where I cannot walk, that's going to be my hobby.
Okay, that's a story for another day. Maybe is there a book in that?
I hadn't ever thought about that.
Uh-oh, what did I just do?
I don't know. But yeah, I'm a model railroad fanatic.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming out
you.
today. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you being here. We're going to look forward to the next book and watch your hiking career, and we're just going to stay in touch.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for everything you do for authors.
Thank you. I'm having a good time.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.